Hello and welcome to End-to-End Solution Architect session. Today I'll be discussing about Terraform workspace and multiple environment. Basically how you can create and select different workspace in Terraform, and if you are using multiple environment, which is very obvious that when you are working in an actual project, you will be managing development environment, production environment, QA stage like this. How can you manage all those different environments with Terraform? Well, so first I will cover few basic understanding of Terraform workspace and how to handle multiple users and multiple environments, and after that I will show you through a hands-on demonstration that how it is working. Well, so first you must be knowing that to work with multiple environment or multiple user, you must set up a backend in Terraform. In my today's demonstration, I will be using AWS as cloud service provider, but if you are using other cloud service provider like Azure or GCP, the concept will remain same, only name of the resources will be different. Well, now in this case, as you see that there are multiple users working on a single Terraform projects. So obviously that we should not store our Terraform state locally. So that's why we have created a backend in AWS cloud using AWS S3, and you see this is the configuration we have used in our versions.tf. If you have already checked our past sessions on Terraform Advanced series, you are aware that what is versions.tf. I am not revisiting that, but it is very important to understand this main.tf, versions.tf, output.tf, variables.tf, basically the Terraform project structure as per the best practices. Well, so on the right hand side, as you see that when you have installed or initialized your Terraform project locally, you used to see these directories and file. The first one is .terraform. It is a directory where it pulls all the Terraform packages as per the Terraform provider you are using in your versions.tf. Second one is .terraform.lock.hcl. It is the file for locking mechanism that in multiple users environment, when someone is making the change, others should not update the state. So it locks the state basically. The next one is terraform.tf state. It keeps the state. State means what is your current state and what is your desired state, what is the actual state. It keeps the state. And the next file, terraform.tf state.backup, it is nothing but the backup of the tf state. So if it gets corrupted, Terraform will use the backup one. Now it comes 4 tf files which are basically managed by the developer. The versions.tf, I'm just revisiting it very quickly. I recommend to keep your all versions in versions.tf. So you know by name that your every versions are in versions.tf. The next is main.tf. Main.tf contains all the resources or the modules you are defining or implementing. It captures all those. Variables.tf is dedicatedly for all the variables you are defining for that Terraform project. Next, output.tf, it will keep all the output definition you want to flush out after Terraform apply. And the last one, but it is very important for this session, is .tfvars. It is the Terraform variable file which has all the variables value in key value pairs, and we will be passing this tfvar files through the command line, and I will show you how. And this is the tfvars you create per environment. suppose you are having two environments, one is dev, another is production. So for production, your variable values will be completely different. You will create two separate tfvar files, and basically it is two files having same set of variables with different values for different environment. Well, now let's proceed. Now let's go more detail into this tfvars file. As I said that you will create tfvar files as per the number of environments you have based on that. In our case, I have kept two environments. One is dev, another is prod. So I have kept two tfvars separately. One is called dev-app.tfvars, another is for prd-app.tfvars, and you can see that I have same set of variables, but the values are different. In dev, I am using AWS region as US East 1. In production, I am using AWS region as CS Central 1. In case of dev, my cluster name is going to be E2ESA cluster, which is the same for production environment as well, but you can change it. You understand that how you can change the value. In case of dev, I am keeping this container insides false. In case of production, I am setting it true. Now, when we are executing the Terraform project, we know that we use Terraform apply command, and we need to pass this tfvars file, which will let the Terraform know that which variable or which tfvar files it should include, so that it gets the value for the variables defined in your project. So when you are provisioning any resources into dev environment, you pass -var-file equal dev-app.tfvars. When you are using production, you pass the production tfvar files. It is as simple as that. Well, now let's go to check more about multiple environment setup and how do you manage that. There is one thing called Terraform Workspace. It is also a feature in Terraform which separates your workspaces from one another. So if you are trying to manage your multiple environment by multiple workspaces, you can do that too. So if you have not created any workspaces, it will show, or it will consider the workspace as default workspace. Well, so if you want to create a new workspace, the command is terraform workspace new and give a workspace name. And then if you want to select a particular workspace which has already been created by you, you select that workspace by terraform workspace select and then workspace name. And there is a command for show workspace. It will list up, it will show which workspace has been selected. So suppose you have selected a particular workspace and now you want to see that which workspace is actually selected. You just do a terraform workspace show, SHOW, enter, and it will show that which workspace has been selected. There is another command, terraform workspace list. It will show that all the workspace for your particular project which are available. Well, now if you remember that just few minutes ago I was talking about Terraform state management with backend AWS S3. Now when you use that backend, you know that we are actually using AWS S3 to store the Terraform state and DynamoDB to store the locking mechanism. And when you use this backend S3, it basically creates an environment directory or environment folder for your Terraform workspace. I will show each and every steps how it works practically. Just before going there, I'm showing you this screenshot so you get a background, and then you will understand more when I'll show you how it is running. So the environment folder it creates, and inside that environment folder it creates the workspace name. This is the dev which is the workspace name basically. So when you create Terraform workspace new dev and Terraform workspace select dev and then you execute Terraform apply, it actually creates this environment and then dev folder, and inside the dev folder you have this name which you have set in this key. You see this backend S3, there is a key part where I have ECS cluster / terraform.tf state. You can keep this folder name means key as ECS cluster or whatever, or you can keep directly terraform.tf state. Then directly this terraform.tf state will be inside this dev, which is basically the folder by your workspace name. And your workspace name can be anything what you enter. It doesn't mean that it has to be the environment name, but it is more readable and understanding that when you use the workspace as environment. Now let's jump into the hands-on session and let me show you how these things which I have just discussed actually works. So as you see that on my screen, I have logged into two different accounts. It is completely separated, two different accounts. On the left side, this account I consider as my dev account, and right side I have the production account. When you are working in an organization, it is very obvious that you will get complete separate account, AWS account for your development, and production account will be completely separate. But in non-production multiple accounts, suppose the development or integration or staging, that could be in a same AWS account, different VPC, different subnet. So that's the different thing. But here in this session, I'm going to show you how you can manage completely two AWS account considering completely two separate environments. Well, so again, my left side is dev account and my right side is production account. So on my left side, it's basically say E2ESA, which is dev account, and my right side says Som Cloud, which is production account. And you see that both are in US East 1 region, North Virginia. It is also in North Virginia. Well, and let me show you, I have the Terraform backend, which is AWS S3 bucket already created for both the accounts. So let me show you. Well, here you can see that on my left side, which is the dev account, I have the Terraform state backend folder, and on the right side for production, I have my another bucket created. Well, so this is for my state management separately for both the account. Now let me open the Terraform project which we are going to represent today. So here is the Terraform project which we will be creating a very simple ECS cluster, just the cluster, okay, in both the environment. First I will show creating in dev environment and then how we are switching the environment and creating in production environment. Okay, now there are 3 columns of code you can see on my screen. Well, here let me explain that the first column where I will be showing each Terraform files, where I have opened already versions.tf. On the left side you see this is my project structure. Well, so here is my, on the left side column number 1, I have my versions.tf open. Here you see that we have the providers defined. I am using AWS at cloud service provider. For now I have kept this backend configuration off because first example I want to show without backend how it is working, and we have this provider as AWS map. Well, let me show that what is in the variable file. As you see that we are passing this variable. So in our variable files we have, this is my second, we have all the variables are defined over there. I'll be sharing this code. If you check in the video description, you will find all the code from Git repository available. So you do not need to worry about that. Just understand during this session and ask if you have any queries. Well, so we have this variable files, and this is the one variable files only. So this is our first column is our versions file, second column is the variable file now, and the third column, let me show the min.tf, where we are actually using a module ECS cluster and passing the values for this module. Now I am not going into detail that how we have created this module, because if you have checked our past session, there I have mentioned that how you can use and create Terraform custom modules. So I will share that session link in the video description, and I recommend that you understand how Terraform module works. But for now, just keep in mind that in our main file, main.tf, we are creating a ECS cluster using a module, and I'm passing this variable values which I have defined in this variables.tf. This is as simple as that. And there is one next thing as well. Let me show you that output. Here is the output files. As I have mentioned that after execution of Terraform apply, it should flush out that what are the resources it has created. So I need the cluster ID, cluster ARN, and the cluster name. Okay, after creation. Now, as I said that in this session, our most important file name is tfvars, and you see that we have two tfvars created. One is dev, another is for prod. So let me open this dev on the second column. I am opening the dev on the second column, and on the third column I am opening prod, which is prd-app.tf. And you see in our case we have same set of variables, only the values are different based on the environment we are using. So once we will be using tfvars for dev, it will provision in dev with all the dev variables, and same for the production with production variable into production account. Well, now let me run it simply. So before I run it, so let me delete this .terraform because I already initialized. I want to do it from the scratch. So I'm just deleting this .terraform. So you find that the project is completely from the scratch. I'm also deleting the log file. Delete this log file. It has deleted. So in our project repository, we only have these files. We have dev-app tfvars, also prd-app tfvars, two tfvars. We have two backend configuration file. I will come after that why it is required. So for now we have this dev backend conf and prd backend conf, and we have main.tf, outputs.tf, variables.tf, and versions.tf. Okay, that's all. Now let's do a Terraform init first. Remember that in this case, at this point, we are not using any backend configuration. Okay, it is only the local configuration. So let me create this Terraform init. Well, Terraform has been successfully initialized, as you see the message over here, and you see that just after initializing Terraform init, you get this .terraform, this directory, and this .terraform.log.acl, these two things just after initialization. Okay, but we don't have the .tf state yet because we have not executed Terraform apply at least once. Okay, now I am directly executing Terraform apply, because when you run Terraform apply, it definitely checks for the plan as well as it does validation. So let me write that command, Terraform apply, and I will be passing the particular tfvars. So it is the way you pass the variable, a file as variable, which is -var -file equal, within quote you have to pass this tfvar file name, give enter, and here I have created one variable that which usually asks that who is running this Terraform command. So basically store in the resource tag. So created by, created on, this kind of parameters I do store while creating the resource. It is as per the best practice. So let me add it as e2esa, who is running, created by, enter, and it is showing that it is going to create one resource, 0 change, 0 destroy. Okay, and we are going to do it in our dev environment. And how do I show that it is actually the dev environment? You see that I have passed this dev app tfvars. That is the first thing. Second thing is that I am passing this profile as development, which is the in our versions.tf. Here is the profile, which is var.profile. It is taking from this tfvars, and in my AWS configuration in my local system, from that system I am running, I have this profile configured with AWS key and secret, AWS ID and secret key, separate for both the accounts. I have currently development and production accounts separately. So I have the AWS credentials configured in my system separately. Okay, and the profile name is development and production. Let me show you very quickly where it is. So if you go within your user profile, so basically when you go to your user home, you get a .aws directory, and inside that you get a file called credentials. And if you open that credential file and you have your AWS configured, means your AWS CLI installed and you did AWS configure, then you will get inside that folder, inside that file, that you will get this for profile, which is basically you are mentioning over here. You see that profile equal to default, which is actually referring to this credential file, this profile. And if you have multiple profile, means since I have multiple accounts configured and I want to connect to multiple account from my local system, that's why I have this my key 1 and my key 2. This is the way you configure your multiple AWS credentials in your local system. If you are using Linux system, you just do a sudo cat $pwd will take your home directory, then within that .aws, and you will get the credentials. But if you don't get this path or .aws directory, it means that you don't have your AWS CLI installed or you don't have your AWS configured. So install AWS CLI and then execute AWS configure in full, AWS space configure, and configure with this key and ID. Okay, let me go back again. So we were here, let me enter yes, and before just entering yes, let me show you that where it is going to use this create this cluster. So it is going to create one ECS cluster, which is Elastic Container Service, in dev environment. So I am taking you in the dev environment only for ECS. Click on cluster, and you see we don't have any cluster over here. Currently there is no cluster over here. Okay, so let's go back to our code and click. It is creating. Creation has been completed. Resources 1 added, 0 changed, 0 destroyed. Now let me take you here that we have this terraform.tf state created. This file we get it under our project. Okay, because we are using local state management. I have not used the backend one. So let me go to our dev environment now. Do a refresh, and we see that e2esa cluster -dev has been created. Okay, so let's do one thing very quickly. Let's do a destroy. So let me do a destroy. I am doing it auto approve. It will destroy from the dev environment. Perfect, it has destroyed. Now let me show you that how can you use this Terraform backend. Okay, So now we will be using Terraform backend. So let me copy this code, and I'm just creating over here, and I will let you know that why I am using hard coding this. Being a Terraform developer, we hate to hard code values inside our main files. We always want to pass the values from variable files, tfvars, or dynamically. Okay, so if you are trying to configure your backend by these variables, and let me run this, apply. Okay, the first thing you will realize that since there is a change in the backend, initialization is required. So whenever you do any change in your backend configuration, you need to initialize Terraform. So it says that Terraform init, you do it again, and it's showing that variables not allowed, variables may not be used here, which is line number 20, 21, 22, 23, which is 20, 21, 22, wherever we have used this variable. Okay, so it means that when you are defining your backend, you cannot use the variables. Okay, you have to hard code the values. Okay, there is an workaround, and I will show you how to manage that, but this time let me hard code these values over here, so you will understand how it is working. So I am just doing this hard code over here. So this is my bucket, this is my DynamoDB table name. For dev, I am just hard coding it for dev. Suppose I'm giving this key name as dev. Okay, so this is my DynamoDB table name. Even in this case, I have to hard code the region as well, which is US East 1, and the profile as well, which we are using as development. Okay, so we have made some changes in the backend configuration, and we have to run the Terraform init once again, and it's saying successfully configured the backend S3. Terraform will automatically use this backend unless the backend configuration changes. So it has understood that we are using a remote backend now, not local anymore. So it will be using this S3 backend henceforth. Okay, now that's perfect. Let's run our Terraform apply. So it means that at this time we are using Terraform backend to store our Terraform state file into AWS S3. So let's do this apply. It is asking again. Okay, entered yes, it is executing, and it has created. Well, now let's go and see our S3 folder in our, okay, first let's see that whether the cluster, let me refresh that, because after destroying last time I didn't refresh, so it is still there here. So it will definitely show here that it has been created. It should show after the refresh as well. It's showing that it has been created. And let me take you to the S3. This is our S3 bucket for state management. Inside that, you see that we have one folder created, e2esa-dev. This is the folder created for our backend, because let me show that what is this key I have given, e2esa-dev. So it has created one folder inside your S3 bucket, which is showing that e2esa-dev just inside this S3 bucket. And if we go inside this e2esa dev folder, you get that terraform.state. It has just created, last modified this time. It is currently 5:45 p.m. in Eastern time, and it is 5:46 it has created. Okay, so our state is being managed over here only. Okay, so now if I do this destroy, it will destroy it now. Now let me ask you a question. Till now you have understood that how we actually used backend and used local. Now answer a question or ask yourself that using backend, you see that you cannot pass these variables. So whatever the values you are using for your environment specific values from your dev app.tfvars and production app.tfvars, you cannot pass those values, because in case of production, your profile will be different, your bucket will be different, your keys region can be different, DynamoDB tables can be different. So complete backend configuration will be different. So does that mean that when you want to manage or switch to another environment, do you need to again and again configure this backend? No, there is one way that I am going to tell in this session, and which is very important when you are using a real Terraform project in your organization. Okay, when you are trying to configure your backend specific to your multiple environments, that time you use something called backend configuration. And at the beginning of this session, I told you I created two files backend configuration. One is for dev and another is for production. Let me first open it and show you what is inside that. So in this case, I have on the second column, I have the backend configuration for dev, which is dev-backend.conf, and the third column is prd-backend.conf for production backend configuration. I have all the variables and the values particularly for the backend part only, because for my S3 backend I need these values to pass, these attributes to pass, and that's why I have these values only. And in my separate backend configuration file, I have two separate set of configuration, okay, where my profile is different, my DynamoDB table is different, my region can be different, but in this case I have kept it same. Now your keys can be different, your bucket name will be different. Okay, so how you can actually tell your versions.tf or your Terraform, a single Terraform project, that when you are running for dev, you point to this dev backend configuration. When you are running for your production, you do the, or you select the production backend configuration. That's the main part. So let me show you that how can you manage it. For that, when you are using the separate backend configuration files for our particular environments, then in our versions.tf file, we will only mention the empty backend S3, which is backend S3 and empty curly brace. And we have our two backend files over here. Now the command is going to be Terraform. First we have to initialize because we have changed our backend. So this is Terraform init. Now we have to pass this -backend -config equals our backend file name. So it is dev backend.conf. So let me repeat it again. So we are passing Terraform init because we have changed something in our backend configuration, -backend -config equal dev-backend.config as our backend configuration file. So it is supposed to get the backend configuration from this backend configuration file and pass it to our versions.tf. It has initialized successfully. Now it has considered backend dev backend configuration to initialize this. Okay, now whatever Terraform apply we execute, it will consider the dev configuration only. Okay, so let me show you that how it is. So if I configure, if I apply this, run this Terraform apply and passing this app dev-app.tfvars for dev environment, I do not need to pass the backend configuration again because I have already initialized Terraform with dev backend configuration. So this time I will just pass Terraform apply tfvars for dev. It will ask me the created by again. Okay, SA, and it says that plan one to add and one to destroy. Okay, so it is because that last time we didn't destroy it, maybe, so it is still there. So you see that this is a good example that when we are saying that we need to recreate it again, so it will destroy it first and then again recreate it. So I did just yes, and you see that it has successfully created, added one, destroyed one, like this. Okay, so let's go to our ECS for dev on the left side, and let me refresh. Last time I didn't refresh, so it will show the same, should show the same, and it's showing the same. Well, now our next part, or the ultimate part, is how can we switch this backend configuration without making any changes. Okay, so it is that now we have done this in our dev environment. I am not destroying it. Okay, so how can I do this in production environment? So what I have to do, I have to reconfigure during initialization with backend configuration. So how can I do that? It is like init reconfigure backend config, and I'm passing this prd hyphen backend.conf. So remember this particular thing, you have to pass reconfigure, not the migrate state. You have to pass reconfigure. Okay, if you do migrate state, it will mix up the state with dev and the production. You have to reconfigure this initialization. Okay, so Terraform init reconfigure, it will reconfigure the initialization of Terraform with production backend configuration. So click enter. It has initialized and reconfigured. Perfect. I didn't make any single change in our code. What are you doing? That we are executing Terraform apply, passing this var file with production prd hyphen app.tfvars. So this time our Terraform should consider this third column prd backend configuration and create this ECS cluster in our production site. Perfect, it has created. Now let's go to our production console. On the right side, as I said, it is our production side. It is our S3 bucket for backend configuration. Let's go inside that, and we see that we have this key already created, ECS cluster, and the Terraform state also created, which is 1819 means 6:19 actually PM, and it is 6:19 PM. So right now it has been created. Now let's see that how the ECS cluster name has been created. Here we say that we have ECS cluster name created, which is E2ESA cluster PRD, and you see that we had few difference in name, which is the PRD for production, dev for development, and for production we did that container insights enabled, and for dev we had this container insight disabled, which is the default monitoring. Okay, and this is what we passed from our dev app tfvars, basically in dev tfvars if you see, and production tfvar if you see that it is true for production, it is false for production. So we have just seen that how we can switch to multiple environments. Now if you have more than 2 environments or n number of environments, the same way you can switch it. So if you now your Terraform state is actually initialized with production. Let me do one thing, let me destroy it before I end this session, just destroying it. So destroy it, and I'm just passing auto approve. And I will show you once more that let's switch back to our dev environment once again. From here we are at production now, we will switch to our dev environment and we will destroy whatever has been created, that cluster we created in our dev environment. So it has just destroyed from our production environment, it has destroyed. So let's go to production environment once more, and I'm just refreshing over here, and it should not show anymore. Yes, now we will switch to our dev environment, which is on the left side, and we will destroy this one. Okay, so let's go to our code, and what should we do to switch to our dev environment? Ask this question to yourself. We have to reconfigure with dev backend, right? So it is our dev Terraform init reconfigure backend config dev backend. It has reconfigured, and now it is the time for destroy for dev. So it is the destroy I'm passing, and passing the dev app.tfvars auto approve. Perfect, it has destroyed successfully. Let's go and check it over, just do a refresh, and it is not there. Well, so far you have understood that how we can play with multiple environments and switch from one to another. Okay, now before end this session, let me show you two things very quickly. Okay, one is, where is this code I have just used? Let me show you that I will be sharing this whole code, and you will find under our E2E solution architect Terraform this link all the projects and the module I have, and currently I have just used under this providers. And if you see this example, this is the project I have just used, which is E2E SA AWS ECS cluster. You can copy it from here. And the last thing, it has been a little long session, I understand, but there are so many important things I have discussed. Before I end this session, let me show you, clear the screen, that what is Terraform workspace I was showing. So if you run Terraform workspace, first show, it will show that by default, or what is that workspace you are set. So it will show that it is the default workspace. So if you have not created or set any workspace, it is to your default workspace. Now let's create one workspace. If we see, so if we created workspace, it means workspace new, suppose my workspace, that is my workspace. If it is my workspace, okay, and it should be create and will be shifted, means pointed to this my workspace. It says that created and switched to workspace my workspace. Okay, now if you do a list, Terraform workspace list, it will show all the Terraform workspace available for your project. So it says that default is the default workspace which is available. My workspace, you created this my workspace, and it is the star means your project is pointing to this my workspace. And there was one more workspace which I created in past, that is ECS cluster as workspace. Okay, now let me show you one thing. Once you have created this workspace, means it is pointing to your my workspace. If I run Terraform, what happens? So if I run this Terraform apply, you see that PRD AP, I'm passing this dev because Terraform is initialized with dev currently. So just click apply. It is creating the ECS cluster in dev. It has created successfully. But let me show you one interesting things. You remember that the workspace we created called my workspace, and let me take you to the S3 Terraform S3 bucket in dev. Here is the S3 bucket in dev. If I go inside that, now you see that there is one env file, env folder. Basically you go inside this env folder, and you find that my workspace is there. So it considers that which workspace you are pointed to. It creates a folder inside the env directory, and if you go inside your my workspace, you get this ECS cluster, which is nothing but the key name you provided in your backend configuration. This is the key name you provided your backend configuration. Let me open this. This is the key name. If you don't provide any key name over there, you just pass this terraform.tf state file directly. It will be inside your this workspace folder directly. Okay, so if you go inside this key folder name, you find your terraform's tf state over here. Well, so it was a long session. I really hope that you understood it very correctly, and if you have any question, please write in the comment box and reach us to etvsolutionarchitect.com. And let me give you a brief about what is going to be our next session, because in our next session I am going to talk about running Terraform in cross-account environment. Today also you have seen that how you are running into cross account, means you have a complete separate dev account, complete separate production account. But in next session I will mainly focus on how you can run in the cross account without any AWS credential. Okay, this time today I have used the AWS configurations, credentials, key, ID and secret key for both dev account and production accounts, right? But how you can run cross account Terraform without any credentials, and that is the solution is using AWS IAM instance profile, and I will explain that in my next session. So don't miss that next session. See you there. Thank you for your time.